Ballot, an Assembly Townhall Review, a production of Tobago Channel 5 and Tobago CivilNET. My name is Natoya Johnson Chapman. This series aims to review the last 4 years' tenure of the elected representatives of the Tobago House of Assembly. 14 elected assemblymen have been invited. Mr. Joel Sampson, who has moved to the Parliament, was not. We have had 7 sessions with 7 assemblymen completed to date. We have unfortunately had 4 rejections to be part of this series. That includes Mr. Watson Duke, Mr. Kelvin Morris, Mr. Niall George, Ms. Megan Morrison, and a no-show from Mr. Wayne Clark. We were not able to agree on a date with Ms. Zoisha Hackett. However, we hope that this series has helped educate the public on the work of the elected representatives and that it will help them in the future elections of choices. We are here tonight chatting with Mr. Farley Augustine, Assemblyman for Palatruvere, Lansome, and Speyside, and of course the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly. Tonight we will review the last 4 years of Mr. Augustine's term in the Assembly. We will invite Mr. Augustine to summarize his overall performance over the last 4 years. And of course, we'll have a discussion with him about questions from our live audience as well as from those listening on Pulse 89.5 via Facebook, via Tobago Channel 5, and of course from the live audience, right? And you can also submit your questions via 681-1005. That's 681-1005. You can call in or you can WhatsApp your questions. All right, so tonight we will follow this form, right? His representation of the people of his constituency, his secretarial work and responsibilities, and his role in strengthening good governance in Tobago. All right, so Mr. Augustine, welcome to Before the Ballot. We thank you for attending and agreeing to take questions from the people.
Sure, no problem.
Excellent. This series, as I said, is aimed at helping people speak to you directly to their representatives and to understand Tobago's progress, right? So the public appreciates your commitments to good governance,
yes.
Right? So we'd like to start by giving you 5 minutes to describe your performance over the last 4 years across all areas, right? Please give us a fair and balanced overview of some of your accomplishments and challenges over this time. Right, so we'll start with the representation of Palatruvere, Lansome, Speyside, right? The first question we would head into, of course, as Chief Secretary. What would you say is the single biggest thing Tobago people can see and touch, right, that improved under your leadership? I would repeat that question again.
Sure.
What would you say is your single biggest thing Tobago people can see and touch that improved under your leadership?
Well, it's difficult to give a single thing because there were so many competing. One, we have done better than any previous administration when it comes to managing gratuities, increments, and overtime payments. Notwithstanding, we inherited and still have a lag in the system. To date, we have spent over $215 million across all divisions, education being the highest spend in terms of gratuities. That's a huge difference. We have also spent 4 times as much as any previous administration on scholarships and bursaries. The allocation normally for what we call DATAs, scholarships and bursaries, is usually around $500,000 per year. To date, we are spending on average $12 million per year on scholarships and bursaries. We, out the gates, improved the living conditions by paying living wages, proper wages, to our CPEP and URP workers. We increased their salaries without prompt from central government, carrying up our recurrent expenditure budget, of course, but we did that from as early as 2022 because we insisted that people must receive a living wage and must be treated as human beings and not the paltry salaries that they had. And we did that on our own without prompting from central government. My administration has also done a lot more road repairs than any previous administration. We have also changed our social welfare program. So our food card program, for example, is now prorated according to need, and you can get what was traditionally just $500, but you can get all the way past $1,000 based on family size and actual need. So there are several measures and examples that I can bring to the fore about how we have outperformed our predecessors, and most of those are in the area of social security programs, because we inherited a government just on the margin of COVID. As a matter of fact, when we came into office, our airports were still very much locked down and had only domestic flights. We got the first international flight in Tobago somewhere around April in 2022 after coming into office in December 2021. And so we understood very early on that if Tobago is to survive and grow post-COVID, then we needed to ramp up social security measures to ensure that those so adversely affected would be able to survive and be placed on a pathway for growth again.
Okay. Thank you so much for expounding on that. However, to you,
sure,
as Assemblyman for Palotovia, Lansome, Speyside, and the existing Chief Secretary, to you, what is this out of all of these things?
So if I look at my electoral district as area rep, because there are two roles I straddle. I'm area rep first, and I'm also Chief Secretary. Yes. And as Chief Secretary, I do all the large things for everybody at a macro level. But as area rep, then I have to take care of the most rural district on the island. And if I look at area rep position at Palativale, Lansome, Speyside, we have to date the single largest investment by dollars and cents in the northern side of the island, in the Blue Food facility that we are currently building out. It's just past $4 million in investment, but it is a very first for that Bloody Bay, Lansome area. They have no project in that area in recent times that meets that sort of spend. And to me, that's a huge achievement, because I didn't look to Speyside, where I'm from, or Charlottesville, or even Castara, that everyone loves, but the most vulnerable in the district, to begin to make that kind of investment. The kind of investment we made in Speyside, like Speyside High School, we just spent $7 million there. That's about fixing a poorly done prefab building. And yes, that to me is important, but the investment between Bloody Bay and Lansome is most important. And then as Chief Secretary, outside of all of the broad policy decisions that we have taken that were excellent and in favor of Tobagonians, my leadership and response to the oil spill, I think, is a signal of what leadership should look like in times of crisis. We had an oil spill that affected 15 kilometers of our waterfront. And all the international actors, Petrobras, ITOF, all of the international actors told us it will take us close to 9 months to a year to complete the cleanup. We did it in 3 months. 3 months we did it, and returned the space to normalcy, while at the same time managing international communications, because this is an island heavily dependent on tourism, and at the same time doing it, starting the process without any financial support from the central government. And the reason for that is because when I came into office, I was Chief Secretary and Secretary of Finance. And I took a decision in my very first year, off the cuff, that we will save 5% every single year to treat with emergencies or contingencies. So by the time the oil spill happened, we had a savings of $15 million. And so even before the central government gave us that $50 million that came long after, we were able to begin exercises on island, mobilizing the companies, paying them the mobilization, and getting them on the ground to work to clean up. If we did not have that, if I wasn't prudent, if I didn't take such a wise decision on day one in office, it would mean that we really would have had to allow the oil to sit down on the coastline until we got some monies from the central government. And to me, that you know the mettle of a leader in their ability to lead during a crisis.
Thank you so much. Last year, you rated your performance a 7 out of 10. In simple terms, how do you rate it this year, and what can Tobagonians or your constituents see that shows the score is fair and just?
I will stay at the same score at 7, and of course, I'm keeping it at 7 because there are things that happen, notwithstanding they were beyond my control. I take responsibility. I am their leader. So whether I could have controlled the circumstances or not, I'm taking responsibility and ownership of it. And so I rate it at a 7, which means that there is still room for improvement. And that 7 is because I have been the most attentive to the issues of unemployment on the eastern side of my district. Some work needs to be done on the northern side of the district where unemployment is concerned, because it's still comparatively high there, but the eastern side not so badly in terms of how we manage. I rated it a 7 because of the kinds of investment I ensured happened in our schools, not just for traditional academics, but also for co-curricular activities, and the provision from my office from simple things like footballs and cones and equipment for sport and music. I also rate it as a 7 because I have the single largest elderly care program on the island, barring none. I assure you, no one provides as much support and hampers and tokens and follow-up with the seniors than me. And that's something I'm very proud of in my district. You see, we have to learn how to take care of the vulnerable among us. And those that have retired after giving Tobago their all, sometimes they are struggling through the latter parts of their lives, and they just need some little reminder from us that we're still there for them. I rate it as a 7 because my support for sports clubs in my district. As a matter of fact, I have the proud privilege of having Sidis Football Club that I support, and they were have been so successful in amateur TFA football leagues here in Tobago that they have now matriculated into a Tier 2 team. My support for Gold City in Castara, with the uniform, equipment, and so on, led them to be the champion football team last year. I also support the Charlottesville team. As a matter of fact, when I came into office, Charlottesville Football Club was out of football. And I could tell you because I used to be at TFA meetings, they were dismissed from the TFA league. And so we worked on bringing them back into the league, and they are back into the league. My support for the Spaced Anglican Primary School, boys and girls, they didn't quite win the Tobago League this year after coming in second, but they won one of the cups last year, and so we continue to work with the youngsters. So it's a mixture of things, from public infrastructure to investments in education, investment for the elderly, investment in sport, and co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Why I would put it as a 7. Why I'm not saying it's a 10 is because, as I said, my district is the most vulnerable because of how rurally we are located. So while on the eastern side, for example, we're able to do street lights from Kings Bay all the way to Camberton. And I want you to look at how big that is. For all of the existence of Tobago as an island, and for the thousands of years that people have lived on these 116 square miles, we have never had lighting along that pathway between Kings Bay and Camberton in Charlottesville. That's a long stretch. You drive there now, it is well lit. But it's a 7 because we have not been able to do the same from Mount Dillon Hill into Castara, Castara into Palatavere, and Bloody Bay into Lansome. We're at the stage now where Tiantec is actually assessing that. So, and once Tiantec finishes the assessment, we pay Tiantec, and then Tiantec install the lights. So I am mature enough to appreciate where there were gaps, where there were things still undelivered to my district, and so I will keep it at A7.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you mentioned the elderly care program. That's a question that I have later down, but I want you to expound on that someone. Share with us some of the things that you do within that program.
All right, so for example, every single Mother's Day, we have tokens to every single woman in our district that's 65 and older. We do the same for men, but we don't just give them tokens. We give them things that will keep them active. You go to some of the elderly in my district and they will tell you that they receive power tools from me. Why? Because we don't want them to stay indoors. We want them to go outside. We want them to get into the gardening. We want them to use the tools. We know that their mobility may not be what it was before. So instead of giving them manual tools, we'll give them something that's automated and allows them to keep doing what they love doing. We also ensure, well, every single month I do 25 hampers per month, and that changes based on the needs for that month. And then recently we started a program through food security where we have a set group of individuals who every single month will receive fresh produce from us. And again, the target for that is the elderly. So these are some of the things that we do for the elderly in my district.
Thank you so much. Let's head into some other questions as it relates to the villagers, right? Some villagers say that they don't see their leaders enough on the ground. How often have you been doing community walkthroughs or house-to-house visits or listening, I would say, to your own district and elsewhere in Tobago?
Well, that's one of the reasons as well why I would say 7 and not an 8 or 9. The reality is, prior to being Chief Secretary, I and everybody face every single week. I have had moments as Chief Secretary where I have to choose between, for example, meeting a diplomat and attending a funeral. I have to choose between having a very important engagement that is of critical importance to the island, or going to a repast, or going to a school concert or a school show. And that's it. Those are the kinds of choices I have to make every single day. I had a funeral on Monday, and I'll give an example. I had a funeral on Monday in Charlottesville. Everybody know Miss Stranger. Everybody love Miss Stranger. But the engagements I had in Scarborough at the office were so critical, some of which includes national security importance. I cannot reasonably say I'm going to leave this undone to go to the funeral. So what do? I give support. I know that they were not having a wake and they wanted to have a sort of a lime the night before. So what I do, I make sure they get support. They got some drinks and stuff for food and so on. So I give the support. And so one of the things I feel like I missed becoming Chief Secretary is the kind of intimacy I had before. The intimacy where on an ordinary day I could put on a short pants and just go and sit down on the beach in Castara. Fellas playing dominoes, people grilling fish, people smoking their weed, people liming, doing whatever they are accustomed doing, and I just spend the whole day. Now, if I go there, I spend an hour, and then I have to leave. Or the fellas on the bay will say, well, we see him passing in the night. You know why? Because sometimes I have to, most times I prioritize going to somebody's home and visiting individuals at their home, as opposed to just going on the bay. So you miss some of that intimacy that you would have when you don't have the responsibility of being Chief Secretary. And it's also one of the reasons why we have to give due consideration to how we form a new THA whenever we are able to successfully get laws through the Parliament for autonomy. Because it has to be done in a way that we can empower and enable area representatives to spend that quality time building relationships with their community, and allow those as secretaries to spend that quality time doing that job well. In other jurisdictions, there is a separation of those duties. In our jurisdiction, the duties are one and the same, in the same person. And so at times, you will lose on that end. And so again, one of the reasons why I would say 7 and not 9 is because I know for a fact that some of the the kind of intimate relationships I had prior to becoming Chief Secretary, some of that is not there.
Thank you. You're viewing Before the Ballot. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, more questions with our Assemblyman for Palo Tuvia, Lansome, and Speyside.
Vodel Supermart and Pharmacy. Almost everything, almost anything, almost anytime, almost every day. We in every season for every reason. Vodel Supermart and Pharmacy. Almost everything you want from a pharmacy. Just ask for a pharmacist. Well, almost. We are here to serve all of you all of the time. Vodel Supermart and Pharmacy. 141 Chauvin Road, Buku. Call our pharmacy on 610-7634 or our supermart on 768-0723 and 766-0476. Vodel Supermart and Pharmacy.
MI4 Security Services Company is the most advanced security service in Tobago. Ask about our cash and transit service. It's safe, risk-free, reliable, and timely. We provide safe banking delivery for all business types and sizes with highly trained staff, 24/7 monitoring, coordinated emergency response, and a well-maintained fleet of armored vehicles. Contact us at 660-7723 or visit our website at www.mi4securitytt.com to sign up today.
For 10 years, Pulse 89.5 FM has been the beat that moves Tobago. From the latest hits to the voices of the community, we bring the island's rhythm to life. Every day, every hour. Stay locked to Pulse 89.5 FM, the beat of Tobago. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and stream us worldwide on the TuneIn app.
Welcome back to Before the Ballot. We're going to head into secretarial work at the Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Augustine. You led the entire Executive Council for almost 4 years, right? What's the one THA system you improved that Tobago will benefit from long after you're gone?
Oh, it's a simple one, and it speaks to the ease of doing business, the dress code policy. From January 2022, I scratched out that policy and said, listen, people can come into the office with sleeveless, with slippers, with shorts. This is a tropical island, and there must be an ease of doing business. Public officers must understand that it is our duty to serve the public, to serve the taxpayer. I think it was absolutely ridiculous that we will turn someone back from even paying their taxes if we don't dressed in some colonial way. And of course, some of the traditionalists among us were worried that people will somehow walk into the offices with battery riders. That has not happened, but we have certainly created an ease for doing business. And guess what? Trinidad followed us much later on. They had a much more tedious process to get to that place, but off the bat, we jumped on it because there must be an ease to do business. One of the complaints we always get is that people go to the public service, they go to the public offices, they don't get good quality customer services. And I've asked for and mandated that every division take down those dress code policies that had a big no, and then several things they were saying no to, and to replace them with welcome signs. Because our offices must be welcoming to the public. There must be an ease for which one can do business with the THE.
Thank you. Your administration had several reshuffles. What was the biggest reason for moving secretaries around, and how did these moves improve performance?
Well, I wouldn't say we have several reshuffles. We had 2 periods of reshuffle, essentially. We moved, in the first instance, 1 secretary from community development to the position of Assistant Secretary in Infrastructure. and we moved around some assistant secretaries for greater realignment of their talents and improvements. And I'll give you an example. Assistant Secretary Kerr used to be the Assistant Secretary in Education. He was then placed as Assistant Secretary in the Division of Settlements. One of the projects he embarked on was the rehabilitating of all of those ugly bus sheds along the highways and around the island. You drive along the highway now, there is a mad rush from the private sector to partner with us to get those bus sheds done. Clearly, Mr. Kerr got something done there. The same Mr. Kerr is now feverishly installing bathrooms for public parks. Bathroom is nearly completed at the Lookout in Speyside, one at Mount Dillon Hill, and other parts around the island being done in conjunction with Habitat for Humanity. And that's just an example. Sonny Craig was moved into the office of the Chief Secretary as we were taking on board an advice from the IDB that the Department of Environment should be under the office of the Chief Secretary so that it gets the kind of prominence and attention it needed. And so Sonny Craig has assisted with that bailout, the resettling of the Department of Environment from Agri, where it's traditionally located, to Office of the Chief Secretary. And now that department also treats with matters including climate change and resilience. And those are just some examples of how the realignment worked. And then the most recent change was removing some of the responsibility from Secretary Boris and giving the responsibility to Secretary Hackett with regards to culture and antiquities. And that happened before the rollout of the Carnival program. What we have seen since, we have had an extremely successful Carnival, a 4th edition. We have also had a significant improvement with the wait time for Festival Commission paying their service providers and bringing down their debt there, while at the same time she is ensuring that the right type of audits are taking place to see what happened in the commission to ensure that we don't have a repeat of what was happening there. So we have had, for the better part, successes with the shifts that I made in the Executive Council.
Okay, thank you. Coming out of your response just now, give us an idea, how do you and your team predict whether someone will be a good secretary? So that's one. And the second one would be on procurement and how that process goes for a service provider, for an entrepreneur, so that we could understand and the listening public can understand what really happens behind the scenes.
Sure. Well, those are two vastly different questions. So let me start with the first one.
Yes.
The responsibility for selecting a secretary and assistant secretary is the sole prerogative of the chief secretary. So other members of the executive or the team does not have a legal say in who becomes a secretary and what responsibility they are given. Once an election is completed, the chief secretary has to look at the hand he was dealt, meaning who won and what experience and education they have. In addition to that, a chief secretary will have the option of 3 councillors that can bring additional expertise that perhaps we won't have from those elected. We won the election. The 3 councillors we had were Tashia Grace Boris, Orlando Kerr, and Sertica Williams-Orr. Mrs. Williams-Orr, in the early part of the administration, assist us with understanding how the public service worked and ensuring that we could put mechanisms in place for a much more productive public service and treat with some of the issues that the public service workers were having, especially those on the establishment. And later on, I removed her and replaced her with the secretary, a new secretary for finance. In other words, demoting myself, taking away the position of secretary of finance for myself and giving it to Secretary Petalan Roberts, who is a very gifted accountant and who previously was the chief management accountant operating out of the office of the chief secretary. So essentially, a chief secretary sits, he looks at where the talents are, he looks at the experience, and he assigns. But sometimes education and experience is not enough. And I'll give an example. Secretary Hackett taught all her life. She taught before university. She taught post-university. So she came into the government having been a teacher all her life, having been in education all her working career. And so the natural fit is the Division of Education, Research and Technology, because that's where her experience and education aligns itself. Yeah. But then when you look at how she acquitted herself with the responsibilities for culture and antiquities, one must now say, maybe that's where she has some extra talent, some real talent that we have not seen before. And so sometimes it goes beyond just experience and education, but also a matter of where natural talent resides. But as a matter of fact, one must appreciate that anyone who is elected can become a secretary. It has to be about the person's ability to manage people, manage an organization. Our divisions are particularly large. We have divisions that span responsibilities of sometimes 2 and 3 and 4 ministries in Trinidad. The same Division of Education in Tobago will be a Ministry of Education and will also be the Ministry of AI, Public Administration and AI. The Office of the Chief Secretary has in it a Ministry of Planning, has in it Disaster Preparedness, which is Ministry of Rural Development in Trinidad, and Ministry of National Security. We manage all security issues on the island. That's also national security. So you see how we have been doubling up and tripling up. Health. In Trinidad, they have a separate ministry for health from social welfare. In Tobago, that's one division. So we really need people who have managerial skills. And of course, for us, this was our first term in office and in an executive. So you really needed people who could learn quickly, because you're really learning on the job. And we need people that could get to that as quickly as possible. Moving on to your second question about procurement. The first thing I want to say clearly, I want to be lucidly clear that elected officials have little to no hand in the procurement process. In other words, you cannot and should not come to the Chief Secretary and say, look, I want a contract. Give me a contract to build this. Why I ain't get a contract to build that? Because the truth is, as a secretary, I have no role in the procurement process, save and except for 2 things. One, as an executive, we have to approve the project. So we have to authorize, the secretary have to authorize the division to go out to contract for service of works. And 2, on the back end, when they have completed their process, the most a secretary can say is, go ahead with the project, or the secretary can say, I changed my mind, scrap that, we're no longer doing this project. That's it. In the actual procurement process, that's managed by administrators and the chief ad. They are accounting officers listed and catered for in the act. The procurement officers, they are the ones that do the entire process. They are the ones that have to do the negotiating for the costs. They are the ones that must then determine. So what's the simple process? We put something out to tender, and the rules vary if it's a contract for under $1 million versus if it's a contract for over $1 million. If it's under $1 million, then the law says that we ought to create some regulations locally to determine how we process those. So the THA has a little bit more leeway with those under $1 million. Once it is over $1 million, then it goes through a strict process that is identified by the law, and the regulations set by OPR, that's the Office of the Procurement Regulator. So we put it out to tender. When we put it out to tender, any and everybody can bid. Anybody can bid. We can have in the tender process an element of locality, but it cannot be to the extent that it excludes non-locals from participating. That's just the way the law is structured. So you put in your tender. When you put in your tender, the procurement officers, they do an assessment. In fact, they will develop what is called an evaluation committee. That evaluation committee evaluates, and then makes a recommendation. Once it's over $1 million, it must go through what is called a PDAC committee, and that committee must now go back and look and see if every single step of the regulated process, the legal process for OPR was followed. Once it was followed, that committee will then say, okay, proceed to award. Once a letter of award is issued, there is a 10-day holding period. In that 10-day holding period, any contractor or any citizen can actually complain, could actually write and say, look, I'm not satisfied with the process, take a look at it again. And they can write and ask the OPR to get involved. Then the OPR will get involved, reassess the thing, and then decide whether to proceed or not to proceed. And I'll give an example of when that happened. There was a tender for a project to build an ECCE at Corlan, Early Childhood Care and Education Center at Corlan. And a contractor went to the OPR for them to assess it. The OPR looked at it, assessed it, and came back and said, no, absolutely nothing is wrong with the process. Please proceed to award the contract. So although in that instance, it was a Tobago contractor complaining to the OPR didn't care that the person that won the bid was a Trinidad firm. The OPR law basically says this is the person best suited. I'll give you one other example.
Briefly.
Yeah, briefly.
Yes.
TRHA went out for tender for security services.
Yes.
Then I heard, because I was at a business chamber meeting, I heard the security firm that's there lose the contract. I said, nah, that can't happen. Why would that happen? So I went straight away to TRHA and the Secretary of Health. I said, listen, pause on awarding this contract. I want to see what you did in this process. When we look at the process, and I looked at what was part of the bid package from Amalgamated, who won the contract. Amalgamated documents stick so. Meeting every single requirement, and more. Best on price point. And when I look at comparison by the Tobago firms, some of the Tobago firms didn't even have a tax clearance certificate, automatically got thrown out, automatically. And so in a process like that, I don't even have the power to go in and say, don't give it to Amalgamated, still give it to this one. There was a test case before court where Calco is a huge firm, went at the central government for awarding a smaller firm a contract for $15 million. And the court sided with Calco. And the government still had to pay Calco the $15 million. And guess what? The contract's still in execute yet. They have to do over the tender process. And that's something that the THA had to avoid these past 4 years.
Thank you so much. Before the Ballot will return after this break.
Need furniture and appliances for your home at affordable prices? It's time to visit JG's Furniture and Appliances Limited at their showroom at Smithfield No. 2 in Scarborough. There's more room to shop, more furniture and appliances, more brands to choose from, all at the same affordable price. Get everything you need to furnish your home, like stoves, fridges, washing machines, couches, dining sets. They even have swing chairs, school desks, chase lounges, sports sets, garden benches, day beds, and coffee tables. JG's is perfect for gift ideas for new and established homeowners. A wide variety of furniture and appliances. After 35 years, JG's is still Tobago's top choice for furniture and appliances. Visit their showrooms either at Orange Hill Road or Smithfield No. 2. JG's, make your dream home come true.
You can now get whatever you need whenever you need it anywhere in Tobago with Tapago. Your meals, medication, groceries, and shopping all delivered directly to you. No more hassle, no more stress. Get the Tapago app today on Google Play or Apple App Store.
That's TAPPOGO, and let us deliver to you.
Check our website at www.tapogo.app or call the experts at 494-TOGO and 484-4746. Tapago. Relax. We will get it to you. Tapago's at your service.
MI4 Security Services Company is the most advanced security service in Tobago. Ask about our cash and transit service. It's safe, risk-free, reliable, and timely. We provide safe banking delivery for all business types and sizes with highly trained staff, 24/7 monitoring, coordinated emergency response, and a well-maintained fleet of armored vehicles. Contact us at 660-7723 or visit our website at www.mi4securitytt.com to sign up today.
Welcome back to Before the Ballot. We are here with Farley Augustine, Assemblyman for Palo Trouvier, Lands for Me and Speyside, as well as the Chief Secretary. We are going to head into good governance, but I want to remind our viewers on Facebook and our listeners on Pulse 89.5 that you can send in your questions at 681-1005. And of course, our live audience here will be asking some questions as well. So stay tuned for that. This is Before the Ballot. How are you feeling, Mr. Augustine?
I'm fine.
You're excited?
I am excited.
I know you like to share information. So let's head into the role of good governance. All right? When things went wrong in the Tobago House of Assembly, what's one mistake you will own publicly tonight? Something you personally could have handled better?
That will have to be the immediate response to the shark attack. When the shark attack happened, I was actually in a classroom at Speyside High School. So for those that don't know, every year I still offer myself to do exam preparation classes with sixth formers in communication studies and Caribbean studies. So I'm in the classroom and this shark attack has happened. I'm trying to teach and the chief ed is calling every minute. And then she calls and she says, listen, I am here with a well-known diver, someone from the Diver Association, and some other folks in the marine space. And they're suggesting a bounty. And I said, listen, do whatever. It's fine. Settle it because the children are there and at this point, the ringing of the phone is becoming disruptive. The bounty is out. I am out of class, and it's a Friday afternoon. I'm out of the class sometime just after 5 in the afternoon, in the evening. And head home by my father just for a while before coming home to my family. And then I'm seeing the brouhaha online about the shark attack. And I'm saying, my God, Father, you should have just taken a moment away from what you were doing in the classroom and really think about what was being asked of you on the telephone. So certainly, and this is something I've said publicly in terms of how that transpired and the fact that perhaps that was not the best decision in that moment. However, our intervening actions thereafter were all excellent, to the extent that the family to this day is perhaps rating our healthcare higher than citizens here in terms of how we're able to save life and limb. Our communication with the British High Commission was also excellent. The communication online, because I had staffers online posting using both my personal page and official pages to disseminate information and warning people. That too was very much appreciated, notwithstanding I was away from my usual desk at that point in time. But that's one area I will certainly own.
Thank you so much. If your critics say you were strong on speeches but weak on delivery, what's your clearest counter example?
The clearest counter example for that, I gave that before, and that's with the oil spill. But let me give you another example. Tobago has its first indigenous carnival. This chief secretary, prior to becoming chief secretary, carried this as a motion to the House. At the time, the chief secretary was Kelvin Charles, and that motion was not accepted. Fast track to the campaign for 2021, it was part of the mandate, and I spoke about the economic benefits of it. And guess what? In less than 1 year into office, remember we came into office, I was sworn in as chief secretary on the 9th of December. And by October the next year, we were having our first indigenous carnival product. Less than a year into office. This year we had the 4th such installation. And I'm sure every one of my critics will admit that that's something I spoke quite eloquently about and delivered on even more eloquently than I spoke about it. And I'm sure the critics who felt that no, was not the best time, we should stick to the National Carnival. I even had critics that said, well, why this Adventist boy allowing that to happen in this economic space? Critics on all sides. I'm sure all will agree that the economic benefits are clear. It's evident. And when we look at the analysis, the spend by visitors for the Tobago Carnival is greater in any single period than any single jazz festival, which shows, and we don't have to find US dollars to pay any artists, because most of the artists being bought on the island are being bought by private practitioners, private entrepreneurs in the entertainment industry. So it saves us on US. Locals get a chance to express themselves talent-wise. You see where the Soca Titans is going, for example, and we have ton-loads of visitors on the island to the extent that we don't have enough flights and sailings to move people to the island. In fact, we don't have enough room on island to accommodate all the people that want to come.
Thank you so much. You have said Tobago's elections could be any time. Do you think the lack of fixed date undermine public trust?
Not necessarily. There is need for a semi-fixed arrangement. The Tobago House of Assembly has a semi-fixed arrangement. Ours is not as slack as what happens at the central government. At the central government, a prime minister can wake up any morning, or the prime minister at this very minute could pick up the phone and call the president of the republic and send her an email and say, I am dissolving the parliament right now. I cannot do that as chief secretary. The law is clear. For the Tobago House Assembly to be dissolved, it has to be passed as a resolution from the members. So that's one layer of protection for the democratic process, which means that it's not up to the whims and fancy of the leader. So if the leader feels as though he has lost the confidence of the members of the assembly, he can't just throw away the whole assembly. 2, the House dissolves for itself on its anniversary if a resolution isn't passed before. So we don't even have to pick a date to dissolve the House. It will dissolve for itself. And thirdly, the election cannot be less than 2 months, nor more than 3 months from the dissolution of the House. At the National Parliament, an election can come quite soon after the Prime Minister dissolves the House, the Parliament Day. And so we have an almost predictable date. The House was dissolved on the 12th of November. That means the election could only occur between the 12th of January and the 12th of February, a very fixed period. Here is the benefit of not having a definite date. We have carnival happening around the time when we need to have a THA election. If we had a fixed date, imagine if the fixed date ended up on the same day as medium band finals, pan finals, or the same day as single pan finals, or the same day as Carnival Monday. Imagine if the election ended up on Carnival Monday, when it's a bank holiday in Trinidad and Tobago, when offices are closed and people want to go to Trinidad and gyrate themselves. I mean, I'll probably still win, but we won't get the luxury of saying, this is a bad date for an election, let's pick another date. Now, guess what I'm doing? I'm looking at all the carnival calendars. I am not a carnival person, but I'm looking at when we have all the different pan finals. When is the actual carnival? Well, the actual carnival is just outside of the window that I have. What major activities are happening on island and in Trinidad, and looking for a date where we could get the most amount of Tobagonians on island to participate in the democratic process. So that's the benefit of not having a firmly fixed date, but a semi-fixed arrangement as we have.
Okay, so we have some questions coming in, right?
Sure.
But I want to ask you this question, seeing that you're so confident in winning the next election. If the next Chief Secretary asked you privately, what's the one trap that you must, or that person should avoid, what would you tell them? Briefly, of course.
Yeah, I will tell them, avoid the immediate desire to be very friendly and kind and inclusive to your political enemies, because sometimes they don't ever change. And I would say one of the things I did immediately into coming into office, for example, I did not fire a single personal staff from the secretaries I inherited the office from. I kept even the hospitality staff over at finance. The person that made coffee and tea and carried food for the previous secretary, I kept. Because of, and not that they did anything to me personally, but there are many others in the space like that who I accommodated because I said, look, I came in on this mantra of building a coalition of the competent and the willing, and what you should do as chief secretary is vet every single person first. Vet them first, including your own supporters too, eh? But you see, those that you meet in the space that you know were handpicked hires of your predecessors, vet them first. Vet them first before you use them, and before you determine what kinds of sensitive information to allow them access to, and what rooms you allow them in.
Thank you so much.
And that's just being practical.
Thank you so much. We'll head to the question. Thank you so much. So this question just came in. Are there still plans to make the THA divisions and services more accessible to the people of Tobago East? Do you have any plans to introduce sub-offices at the administrative complex in Roxborough? And will you resume your office days in Tobago East?
Right, so about three things there. So there is an administrative complex in Roxborough. It's not large enough to accommodate all divisions. So there are a few divisions there, and the THA, prior to me coming into office, allowed for tea and tech. And of course, we had to move town and country planning and inland revenue into that building because the old inland revenue office had become unsuitable. OSH would have shut that down. So there's limited space. There is, in fact, for the first time since I became Chief Secretary, an Office of the Chief Secretary in Roxborough, so they don't have to come to Scarborough. We used to have public days there in the east. Now all the public days, admittedly, are at the office in Scarborough. So yes, I plan to resume the public days in the east as well, which will make it easier for people in the east, instead of them having to journey all the way to Collar Hall for the public days there.
Thank you so much. We have another question. Why is finding a job so hard, especially for the qualified youth who just left school?
And that's an excellent question. The reality of Tobago's economy is that we have a very small private sector owing to several factors. Our private sector is small because we have a very small population. People, you all need to make more children, right? So the economies of scale in Tobago is extremely small. That limits success. It limits how big and extensive the private sector can be. So most of our citizens here in Tobago, after leaving school, are really just dependent on the THA for a job. If you go and check it now, the unemployment rate in Tobago at present is lower than Barbados, is lower than Grenada, is lower than most of our colleagues in the Eastern Caribbean. And that's because the THA actually employs most of us. And so every youngster that leaves school really and truly is knocking on the THA's door for a job, because the options are limited in the private sector to what you can do. Most of the private sector jobs are actually in the tourism sector, and most are not managerial in nature. So if you're a degreed person, and Tobago, thankfully, is on par with global standards when it comes to people with tertiary education. So if you're a degreed person, for example, your options in the private sector are next to nil. And so you're really depending on a contracted arrangement with the THA. And oftentimes, you will find yourself underemployed in the THA. The real fix for that is expanding the private sector. And to expand the private sector, it has to include foreign direct investments. It has to include us rearranging that land license arrangement where a single minister in Trinidad could determine who could buy land in Tobago, not even a Tobagonian, not even the THA. We have to look at that. We have to also look at mechanisms by which we can provide incentives to our people to perhaps have a higher birth rate. On average, traditionally, Tobago used to have between 900 and 1,000 live births per year. We currently have just over 400. You're talking about close to 50% drop in our birth rate as an island. And so we have a team of actuarians right now that's working on developing a Tobago trust fund with the intention that that trust fund will provide a saving mechanism for all of our young people. So by the time you get to the age of 21, you can draw down on your trust fund that your island has given for you. And you can use that for education, entrepreneurship, or to literally start your adult life. And we use it as a mechanism because we have to really provide incentives. That's why we started the Baby Box program in August. Every newborn in Tobago now walks away with a beautifully designed box with everything that's needed at the start, from pampers to formula to booties and vests and so on, in this box. All of that is in an effort to work around the population that we have. And of course, the final solution is getting our tourism numbers back up. Because if our tourism numbers are high, then we will have a large transient population, and we can superficially inflate our population from the 60 to 70,000 and create a better economy of scale and better employment opportunities outside of the government sector.
Thank you so much. We have some questions here in studio. Can the first person please step to the mic and ask your questions clearly? State your name, of course.
Leroy George is the name.
Thank you so much.
Good night, Chief Secretary Farley Augustine. How are you doing tonight?
Fantastic, sir. Who are you?
I am very good.
Right.
So my question is based on a figurative scenario that is playing itself out in the minds of a lot of Tobagonians right now, right? In the event that a situation should arise similar to one where your predecessor, Hochoy Charles, would have given some advice, would you revisit this advice? The advice that he gave was when there was an incident at the A&R Robinson Airport where persons were being moved from their homes, etc., and they weren't satisfied with their remuneration. And the advice was that an injunction should be filed by yourself on the basis of the 16th item in the 5th schedule of Act 40 of 1996, so that you could use your own powers, the ones that you do have with your 33 responsibilities, to create some positive influence or change for the people of Tobago. Now, the figurative scenario is one whereby, let's say in the future, you were to discover that infrastructure, and that is the 16th item, specifically as it pertains to airport and seaports, is taking place in the A&R Robinson right now. And that infrastructure in this figurative scenario is US military infrastructure for the purpose of being used for military operations, which at the very best is questionable where morality and legality is concerned, would you revisit that advice of Mr. Hochoy Charles, which is to file an injunction if the people of Tobago find it to be inappropriate?
Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you for your questions. I'll answer them in two ways. One, if there is in fact, and we don't know that, the government has not said that to us, and I have no such evidence, but if there is in fact installation at that area that is relative to military operations, then that will not be a fifth schedule item. That will be a matter for national security, for which there are two ministries, Homeland Security or the Ministry of Defense. If it is a matter strictly related to airports and airport operation, then of course that can be triggered, because you are right, the 16th item of the fifth schedule says air and seaports are under the exclusive administrative controls of the Tobago House of Assembly. There's one caveat you should note though, which is based on Act 40 of 1996. The cabinet still reserves supremacy when it comes to the construction of policy. And if the cabinet develops a policy, unfortunately, the THA has to carry it out even if it's a fifth schedule item. And I'll give an example. If the cabinet decides right now all schools in the country must be painted black, what the central government cannot do is come up to Tobago and paint the schools black. But what has to happen is that the THA has to go out and paint the schools black, because it is our responsibility to execute that policy. That is just the law. And that is why this issue of autonomy is so critical, and it is why I am insistent that if bills have to go before the Parliament, they must meet the actual needs of Tobagonians. And that's why we can't encourage people who say we should have accepted a bill that would have given us no lawmaking powers over our maritime space. Because had we done that, the cabinet in Trinidad will still make policy over the maritime space. And we in Tobago will be like some loopy dogs having to carry out those policies, although they will be a fifth schedule item.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
But I will tell you this hypothetically, if something like that is in fact happening there, it will be met with resistance from me, whether or not we have the authority over it or not.
Thank you so much. We have another question from studio audience. Your name and your question briefly.
Good evening, everyone. Bevon Dennis, Chief Secretary Farley Augustine. My question to you this evening is, in considering the recent murders that we would have faced on the island in Tobago, and looking at your statement in view of Tobago looking at the potential of investor input to build out the island, also looking at our tourism element, what would you do if you are re-elected and your group comes into the THA in 2026? What would you do in the first 6 months to regain that confidence on the island where it relates to security? What would be your plans, and or what action would you take to deal with that in Tobago?
Well, I could tell you about an action that is already taking place. As we speak, the draftsmen are working out the arrangement for a localized police force, something that was sent down as a bill to the Parliament since former Chief Secretary Orville London. It is now being worked out. We have agreement from the government and the cabinet that this is the direction that we should go in. We have agreement from the Commissioner of Police, who is contributing to that process in terms of working that out and how that looks. And that will allow the Tobago House of Assembly and the people of Tobago to take control of some of the security functions on island. And that includes everything from traffic management, tourism, orient police, policing of our marine parks, forest rangers, and all of the localized policing needs, which will then in turn free up the very limited human resource that the TTPS in Tobago has to treat with intelligence gathering and to also treat with the larger need for crime fighting. Our biggest challenge too, that we have to keep pressing the central government for, I don't want us to take our feet off their necks on this issue. The issue of management of our borders. Our borders are too porous. We just had a robbery at a casino, and I'm embarrassed to tell you that we had a robbery at a casino. The people escaped by boat. TEMA sent up the drone so we could see where they are in the water. They are reachable, and Coast Guard could not get to them because Coast Guard had no fuel. And no one contacted me, because had they contacted me, I would have gone to the 24-hour gas station, swiped my card, and paid the $1,600 for the fuel for them to catch the team, right? But imagine that people escaped after a robbery in Tobago because Coast Guard had no fuel. And that's an embarrassment. And I only learned of that after having a security meeting post that fact. And it just shows how porous our borders are. Last year we had a murder in Plymouth. Last year was what almost murderous year. We had a murder right in Plymouth on the junction. And the people escaped by boat. Not by car, not by foot, by boat. And while all of that is happening, people talking and start shooting this in this space and not realizing we have to protect our borders so we can get all the best policemen on the ground. With borders porous, we will continue to have a fight against crime. And we have to keep our feet on the necks of the cabinet to ensure that they fix the assets for our men and women in the Defense Force, the Coast Guard, and the TTPS.
Thank you, Mr. Augustine. Thank you so much. We'll take 2 more questions in studio. All right, good evening. Your name and your question, briefly.
Yes, good night, everybody. My name is Brendan Gray.
I beg you to take this too, because I see a very young girl at the end of the line.
No problem.
So we should, when they're that young, we should give them
no
the
problem at all. Certainly. No, so you could go ahead and state your question, but we'll take her, right?
Thank you very much. Mike, hearing me?
Yes.
My name is Brendan Gray. I'm from Scarborough. And I don't know, should I go with my 3 questions at once?
Only 1 question we can take at this time. If you can choose one that is most important to you at this time, we'll take that question.
If Channel 5 is willing to go a few minutes beyond the 9:30, I will accommodate.
Okay, well,
Thank
no
you
problem.
very much.
Channel
Thank
5,
you very much. Yes.
Channel 5 is willing. We will go till 10. That's what we're saying. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So,
the 3 questions, right?
3 questions.
Yes. Yeah. The first one is I saw where the government is doing a revitalization program in Trinidad, in various areas in Trinidad. I participated in a sort of revitalization of the Scarborough, where we're going to do a whole revitalized Scarborough. Where is that in relation to how is that going to be implemented? Or is that in your next term, what are you going to do about that? Because we want to see some revitalization in the Tobago space. That's one. The other area is as a student of Mr. Robinson and JD and those people, I am an advocate for autonomy, and I saw you raise that point a while ago. How important would that be in your next term? Where would you be putting it, and would you be trying to get that going in the first quarter, second quarter, or the first year of your next term? And the other question is to do with oversight. I note in the space that a particular individual is speaking about having a body as an oversight to the Executive Council. Is that something that is being considered? Because I know reading the Act 40, it does not make mention to that. But somehow it seems as though this is taking root in the community, as that they need a oversight body to deal with the executive. Is that something that you are considering? And if not, how would you present something that will give the public some kind of understanding of what's happening in the executive? Sure. Finally, I want to say this. I just coming here, I saw fridge and stove on the road right out there, which is an environment situation. I don't know if you recognize. In the road, I feel, since that is part of the Chief Secretary's remit, could something be done about that? Thank you.
Thank you. So let me answer quickly. The fridge and stove you saw on the road outside there, I believe, is part of somebody's private enterprise. It's actually part of a business that's happening there. But I agree that they should stockpile in a much more environmentally sensitive manner. But as an island, I want citizens to take some responsibility. We do pay for trucks to take up white waste, and I could tell you, I will go myself, I will go with youth clubs, we will take it up, and as soon as we clean the area, you turn around next morning and you see a brand new couch set there, right? So in other words, the white waste, there is space at Stanley Park designated for that. Please take care of that, and for our commercial citizens, you are to take your garbage to Stanley Park. You have a big business enterprise. You should not be filling up the side of the roadways and the garbage bins. Leave that for residential clients on the island. Third question you asked, oversight. It's not quite there in Act 40 of 1996. I believe that there is need for it. In Trinidad, members are placed on parliamentary committees, for example, and they are paid to be on those parliamentary committees. That doesn't exist in our system here. I think the way I would like to see it happen is that I would like to see a separation between the executive, a clear separation between the executive and the legislature. Area representatives should be area representatives who must come to the House and actually scrutinize every policy of the Exec Council based on what the people in the districts are saying, and not trying to also be in the executive at the same time. That's a clear way. Once we must just agree, though, that those doing the oversight must also be elected by the people if it is to be a true democracy. So we can't just go out and appoint some set of people and say, give oversight. The oversight function must be elected by the people. Your second question, which is how important will autonomy be in the next term? At the last sitting, I more or less pointed out a strategy. The strategy is that we should have before the National Parliament, within this year, within a year from now, fresh bills for autonomy, post-consultation with the people of Tobago, of course. But while that consultative process is underway, there are a couple of things that can happen even before that, such as the moving of town country planning, EMA and those agencies, and a piece of omnibus legislation that will settle any conflict as to whether a secretary acts or a minister acts, and of course, treating with some issues like the quota in the House and so on. Those can happen because those are simple matters that require simple majority while we consult on getting a bigger, broader bill. And at the end of the day, the third thing I'll tell Tobagonians is that we need bills that will give Tobagonians the right to set up the structure of the government that we want, so that whenever there are problems, we're not going back to the National Parliament to fix it as we had to do when we had the 6-6. And then with the first question with the revitalization of Scarborough, where are we? We did the feasibility, we did all the mappings, we put the Dopplers down in the ocean, we mapped ocean currents, reefs, and did the seabed surveys and all of those things. We did the 3D rendering for what the port is. We did go out to tender. We had international firms saying that they're interested in actually building out for us. Some offering as high as $700 million US for a project like that. But every single person who tendered wanted some kind of sovereign guarantee before putting their investment in Scarborough. But guess what? The THA cannot give a sovereign guarantee because based on how our laws are structured, we are not the sovereign. So we are now working that out with the current government, who is actively pursuing international investors for their revitalization project in Trinidad. I can assure you that the rest of the work required for the revitalization of Scarborough will be part of the upcoming blueprint, which we hope to launch on New Year's Day, which will map out where Tobago will go. It's also part of the development pathway because we sat and we worked out a a 20-year development plan for the entire island of Tobago. So you will see it in those. So the dream is still very much alive, and we have done all the preparatory work to date. We just attend and get somebody to go and do it and finance it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Augustine. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a short break, seeing that we're going to continue till 10 o'clock.
Sure.
All right. So we'll continue with the live studio questions, and you can send in your questions at 681-1005. All right. Before the ballot will return after the break.
Vodel Supermart and Pharmacy. Almost everything, almost anything, almost anytime, almost every day. We in every season for every reason. Vodel Supermart and Pharmacy. Almost everything you want from a pharmacy. Just ask our pharmacist. Well, almost. We are here to serve all of you all of the time. Vodel Supermart and Pharmacy. 141 Chauvin Road, Buku. Call our pharmacy on 610-7634 or our supermart on 768-0723 and 766-0476. Vodel Supermart and Pharmacy.
Escape to elegance at Le Chateau Suites Tobago. Gated privacy, breathtaking villas, unforgettable memories, where Caribbean dreams become reality.
Rise and shine in the morning is just part of my day.
From 6:30 to 8:30 every day. Foreign man says so.
It informs me of what happens in Tobago.
I find it to be so informative. Every aspect of Tobago affairs is being discussed there. So I will continue to look at Rise and Shine. That's my thing.
Monday to Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m.
I love Rise and Shine.
Have you visited Tobago Channel 5's Facebook or Instagram pages lately? Well, check them out now for all the interviews and up-to-date news. Remember to like, share and follow for Tobago news and current affairs information at your fingertips.
Vodel Supermart and Pharmacy. Almost everything, almost anything, almost anytime, almost every day. We in every season for every reason. Vodel Supermart and Pharmacy. Almost everything you want from a pharmacy. Just ask our pharmacist. Well, almost. We are here to serve all of you all of the time. Vodel Supermart and Pharmacy. 141 Chauvin Road, Buku. Call our pharmacy on 610-7634 or our supermart on 768-0723 and 766-0476. Vodel Supermart and Pharmacy.
MI4 Security Services Company is the most advanced security service in Tobago. Ask about our cash and transit service. It's safe, risk-free, reliable, and timely. We provide safe banking delivery for all business types and sizes with highly trained staff, 24/7 monitoring, coordinated emergency response, and a well-maintained fleet of armored vehicles. Contact us at 660-7723 or visit our website at www.mi4securitytt.com to sign up today.
For 10 years, Pulse 89.5 FM has been the beat that moves Tobago. From the latest hits to the voices of the community, we bring the island's rhythm to life. Every day, every hour. Stay locked to Pulse 89.5 FM, the beat of Tobago. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and stream us worldwide on the TuneIn app.
Welcome back to Before the Ballot. We are here with Farley Augustine, the Assemblyman for Palo Tuvier, Lansome, and Speyside, as well as your Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly. If you're now joining us, welcome. We are now going to head into some questions that were sent in via Facebook, on WhatsApp. So we have these questions on screen, and then we'll come back to our studio audience who have some more questions for us. So we have a question. All right, so we'll go into studio first. So tell us your name and what is your question or questions. Let's make it nice and sweet.
Good night. My name is Ava McCall.
Come closer to the mic.
Right, Ava or Ava McCall, which is the proper pronunciation of my name. Good night, Mr. Chief.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night, Miss Moderator, and everybody in the audience. I have two questions. There are hundreds of Tobagonians who say that you have lost touch with the ground. What do you have to say to them? Question 2, how do you intend to address internal party conflict your organization is presently facing?
Thank you. The first question, if you realize, I addressed that very early on. When I assessed my own performance, I said that one of the things, and I said it on another interview recently, one of the things I missed upon becoming Chief Secretary is the intimacy that I once had with the people I represent. And that's a matter of time and how much time can be given to that. And I did say that that's one of the areas I want to strategically focus on the next time around. Because one of the things I'm always conscious of is that I don't plan to be Chief Secretary forever. And these are the people who I expect to live among. I am not trying to be Chief Secretary when I wait to live somewhere else. I am Chief Secretary to return and live right here. So that's one of the things I addressed earlier on in saying that, yes, in becoming Chief Secretary, when you work 10 to 12 hours a day and you started at 10 o'clock, but you're coming home at 10 o'clock in the night, two things will suffer. The people that you will ordinarily go and just sit down and line with and talk to, and of course, your family will lose some of that time. And that's part of it. First, the second issue with internal party conflict. I believe that this matter will work itself out by the weekend. You see, I'm a firm believer in democratic principles. And as a party, we must have as a democratic principle that any incumbent representative can be challenged and possibly can be asked not to return as a candidate. We have to also appreciate that as a party, the goals and the objectives must be larger than the individual. And if I felt at this time, if my party had said to me at this time that, Farley, we don't want you to lead us into the next election, you will get no fuss from me, I would pack my bags and go quickly and allow the party to do what is necessary. Now, we are employing a very fair and transparent process for the selection of candidates, to the extent that two of my very best friends, me and talking pumpkin vine friend or pickup friend, are talking very best friend, including someone who I was his best man and he my best man in both our weddings, offer themselves and were not selected. Because to me, the process must go above and beyond personality and individual. It cannot be that we are trying to run a party that says if the people I like and I want to run and get through, then I'm withholding my support. That means that for you, the objective is not bigger than the party. And we have to run a party where the objective is Tobago before party, Tobago before self. I am trying my very best to ensure I'm fair to every single one. And if you observe me all along, I have said next to nil to any of the supposed warring fractions that are competing for candidacy in the party. And I'm happy for it, in that there is only one party that makes sense on the island and worth fighting for, and is the TPP. Nobody fighting over PNM. They struggle to find people. So there's only one party worth fighting for. The other two parties don't even have a constitution or proper internal election. So I understand the competition is high, but we have to go through the process and allow the process to work itself out. And when that is done, we rally behind each other and get the work done.
Thank you so much.
Right?
Thank you for your question. Thank you for your question. We head into another question here in studio. Yes. Oh, we had the young lady. So as she makes her way to the mic, let's remind our viewers, you can WhatsApp your questions at 6811005, 6811005. Thank you so much for viewing at Tobago Channel 5, as well as on Facebook and on YouTube. And of course,
on Pulse 89.5.
Listen to us on Pulse 89.5. Excellent. So good evening, my dear. Tell us your name and what is your question?
Hi, good evening.
You could come closer to the mic.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kabira Gonzalez, and I'm from Signan Hill, Tancred. I don't have a question, but I have something to say.
Sure, go ahead.
Me, Kabira, need help. At times when I get home from school and I have homework, like a lot of homework, and I don't finish in time, I have to go below the street lights and do the rest. And
there's no electricity at home?
No.
All right, so right after this session, you're here with a parent? Right, so right after this session, let's have a conversation. I'll need to talk to mommy to see how we could remedy this situation quickly. Of course, we will have to look at things at whether the property you're currently living in is owned by the landlord, by you or by someone else, and whether we will get the authority to come in and do the development works that's needed for you and your family. But certainly we will see how quickly we could provide a solution for you, because it's critical. A good home is critical to the education of every human being. And I want you to have the best quality education and be able to complete your homework on time and do your after-school studies. All right, so this is something we'll work on as a matter of emergency. All right, Ms. Gonzalez? But thank you for being so brave about it.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We head into a question that just came in before we head back to the studio audience. What is the plan for sports, and would the booths at the Boku Integrated Facility be opened back?
The booths at the Boku Integrated Facility, they're currently being prepared so that they can be opened back. Since we had some failing business there before, we are asking the Secretary of Finance and BDU to select the next crop of entrepreneurs to use those booths and to follow them along the process and the journey so they'll be successful. In terms of sports, that's a very broad question that was asked. We are behind on some of the fixes to our facilities. You'll realize that we have been investing a lot in fixing the basketball courts and the football fields and the lighting infrastructure and so on. So in the next in this fiscal, we should complete all those that are outstanding. We also have reached the point of final designs for the indoor facility, and we're not looking at that very pipsqueak one that couldn't host international events, but one that could actually host international events. We are actively marrying sport and tourism as we speak. You will notice that we facilitated Dream 11, which is international cricket here on island. We also had the Commonwealth Games. We had Dodds diving recently. We are expecting some mountain biking to happen early next year. And we have several international players coming, In fact, ESPN is carrying Dodds Diving next year live from Tobago after doing a rebroadcast this year. So we're marrying sport and tourism as well, because I think that's a natural fit for us.
Yes, sport and tourism. So you could expound a little bit more on sport and tourism before we head back to this
Sure.
studio audience.
With tourism, the world has gone past sun, sea, and sand. Everywhere in the Caribbean has nice beaches and coral reefs. So they're not coming here just because we have a nice beach. That's long-time tourism. We have to give them a reason to come here in addition to having the most unspoiled of all the beauties in the Caribbean. Sport is one of those reasons. Through sport, you can bring teams in large numbers. Imagine for a moment we have perhaps a world championship in all fours in Tobago. We may not even have room to host people, to accommodate people on the island. When we have junior sports, every junior athlete travel with parents and siblings, so that's more heads in bed. So through sports and having them at strategic times throughout the year, we drive the number of arrivals up for the purpose of coming here to play sports. In addition to which, we have started some conversations with some international sporting teams out of the UK that we met at World Travel Market with the intention that they will come here in the off-season and do training, and that will bring greater spotlight and notoriety to the space that we have called Tobago. So sports and tourism is a beautiful marriage.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We
Sure.
head back to our studio audience here with a question. Give us your name and what is your question?
Good night, everyone. Good night, Chief Sec. My name is Dion Taylor, and at present I am the president of the Tobago Agricultural Society. I heard you mention earlier about the post-COVID social security measures, and at no point in time have I heard anything about agriculture mentioned. We have a problem and we are dealing with it with our food security situation at this point in time. And there is no mention of agriculture anywhere in the works, and we're not hearing anything about agriculture. We've been sitting, we've been having meetings to the death, and nothing at all. We've been out all for the past 2 weeks visiting farmers who have had flooding problems, who have had all kind of problems going on, and there's nobody else to help the farmers of Tobago. Could you please tell me what are your ideas and where you plan to place the emphasis on agriculture in the future?
Sure, thank you for that. We didn't come in our conversations, and you're right, that's a sector that we should have in our conversation this evening. A couple things. You should not be visiting farms by yourself because they are extension officers that should be doing the work and should be accompanying you as the president, looking at what's happening with those farmers. Those are public officers, right? That's one. Two, over the last 4 years, we have in fact made some investments where farming is concerned. And I'll give you a couple. In Argyle, there's a $28 million project underway there. The only reason that's incomplete is because we paid WASA since 2022 to run the lines, and now when the contractor was ready to have the lines run along the estate so that they can complete the roadworks, WASA just never ran the lines. It took me having to intervene and call the Minister of Public Utilities in Trinidad to get WASA to give some action on it. And it looks as though I have to call again for some action on Belmont, because the roadworks were finished in Belmont, but we already paid WASA since 2022 for the lines in Belmont, still not run. And you should note that WASA has certain controls in law over our aquifers and ponds and rivers and water in general. Also, where agriculture is concerned, the tender already went out for mega farming in the Friendship Estate. That will be technology-driven farms, only because we are in the flight path. We can't encourage too much terrestrial farming of crops that might attract birds. So we are actually installing the smart farms there, and we have already assigned some of those farms out to individuals. In the area of food security, we also gave considerable support to our fishers, redesigning and redoing some of our fishing depots. Palliative for the first time, have a fishing depot currently being built. They had just a foundation for more than 12 years. It's actually being built as we speak, with the second phase of that project underway. We redid this Tully Park depot. So now there's a better design that the fishers can sell their products. We also, where we have fallen short, I think, in agriculture, is that one I wanted to get completed before the end of the tenure, the farmers marketing goes bro. The land is identified. I can tell you some monies were paid to start getting that project complete, project underway, is under construction since before April this year. Some of those monies were paid, but guess what? I am still waiting on land management to do the necessaries. And that's just an administrative, bureaucratic nightmare, unfortunately, that I have to grapple with. I don't assign lands and sign them over myself. I could only give the instruction. Part of the problem with land management that we have is that access to surveyors. We keep going out trying to attract a surveyor to work with the THA, and we're just not getting. And all we have are junior surveyors who are not authorized in law or licensed by law to actually issue signed, stamped survey plans. So that is part of the challenge. So we have a backlog, and the absence of surveyors is really crippling our ability to provide those land tenures to the farmers as quickly as we want to. Because what we want to give is leases. I could just give you a piece of paper, which is what you have been having all along. A piece of paper saying you have the right to be on the land, but you can't go to the bank with it and take a loan. But if I give you a lease, you can go to the bank and take a loan. And that's one of the fixes that we're now working out to ensure that we don't have that problem going forward. Also, the Division of Food Security, they have been mandated to increase the subvention to our agriculture-related groups, to increase those subventions. I don't know if they have done that as yet, but they have been mandated, and it is budgeted for in this fiscal year, because as you can tell, we had a budget that we much more prefer than what we had before. So there should be some increase in your subvention to the actual farming groups, not just farmers, but also to fishers and so on, the subsidies and also the returns. One of the ways that we have to work on together is the bookkeeping arrangements for our farmers. When we have natural disasters, sometimes farmers come and say, well, I lost X amount of holes or heads of cabbage or holes of tomato and so on. But very rarely there is any documentary evidence of what they actually have there in the ground. So it's something that we have to work on, and that perhaps might be field officers not doing their work, because those public officers should really and truly work with the farmers, take a record of what they have in the ground, because if you're monitoring, you must know what they have before disaster, post-disaster. And every time there's a disaster, we find ourselves not having the documentary evidence. That's part of the challenge that we have.
Thank you so much. We have a...
Sure, yeah.
Understand that we understand everything that you have just said, but whatever you have said is not trickling down to the farmers at all. There are so many farmers in here tonight waiting to get a chance to talk to you tonight. Could it be possible that we could have a forum where we could talk to you or speak to you directly, please, so that we would be able to suss out three-quarter of the situation?
So what I will do is, notwithstanding there being a line secretary with this responsibility, before the end of the show, I will give you a date and ask for all of the farmers who are here to come and have that meeting with me. I will have Ms. Mackenzie from my office contact you so we get a sense of the numbers, and that will determine the venue based on the number of farmers that you want to bring. At my office, I could hold perhaps maybe 75 or so maximum. But if it's beyond 75, then I'll probably need to go to Shaw Park or another one of the facilities under the Office of the Chief Secretary. Right? So before the end of the show, I will give you a date that we can have that meeting.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have a question coming
online?
in. Yes, online. This question So it's a little small here. It's from Ricardo Duke, right?
I can see it. He's asking what are the plans for, do we have 2020 vision?
Very good.
What are the plans for the White Elephant Cove Industrial Estate? It's non-productive for more than 10 years.
Yes.
Now, let me look at Cove Industrial Estate. One of the things I discovered this year,
All right, thank you.
because
1 second. So remember, we are live and we want to hear the information that is
Sure.
being shared, right? The information is for everyone that's listening and everyone that's viewing. Yes? Thank you so much. Go ahead.
this year, after putting pressure on EID Cut to issue lots, lands that are there, for Tobago businesses to build out and operate on, I discovered two things. One, in that area, Section 5 was not yet declared, which is the final state for compulsory acquisition. That eventually happened 2 or 3 weeks ago. And secondly, although I left Tobago, went in the Queen's England, sit down there and tell people in the House of Lords that they could come and invest, and there is a special economic zone in Cove and so on, I discovered after I returned to Tobago that the necessary work was never ever done to have Cove declared in law as a special economic zone in accordance to the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. So now I have a team led by the Senior State Council doing the application, because there's a very specific application process for that. So that means for the last 10 years, we walk on fooling people and fooling ourselves, believing that if you do a business in Cove, you will get tax write-offs and so on, when in fact the necessary paperwork was never done to have the area as a special economic zone. And we are doing that now. So early next year, we should be able to move on Cove, which, as the contributor said, is a white elephant.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have another question in studio. Good evening. Say your name. Question,
Yes.
thank you.
Pleasant good night to everyone. My name is Miss Indra Chance Morris. I am one of the persons in the representation with Mr. Farley. He's my chief sec and will be my chief sec next time coming. He's also my area rep. And my question to you, sir, tonight, what are the necessary plans for the north side of Tobago in perspective of the development? One, Palliative Jetty and the beach facility, and also Bloody Bay Beach facility. Two, what are the plans for the area where the blue food is kept every year, and now that has been developed a bit until the next blue food, what are the plans for the buildings in the area, or will they be there to be misused in the wrong way? So what are the plans?
I thank you very much for those four questions. Bloody Bay Beach facility should be open sometime in December. They're on the final leg of rehabilitation there. When we came into office, the issue was the roof. By the time the roof finished, we had to do the sewer. And because of where it's located on the beach, and that beach having particular blue flag designation, we had to have a sewer system that processed the waste there before letting out any discharge. So all of that the rehabilitation work should be completed in time for the end of the year. Either way, it is a priority in this fiscal. With regards to the Palliative Jetty, the second phase of the works for the depot and is a combined facility. It's a fishing depot and a beach facility at the same time, because it will have bathroom facilities, and the top floor, which is now about to be built out, will have room for restaurant, bars, and recreational activity. So it won't just be for the fisher folk. We have already issued a contract, paid $800,000 to a contractor to start, $800,000 plus to start the second phase. And right now, the division is preparing to move the fishers out of the lockers that are there, the locker rooms that are there, into temporary facility to facilitate the second phase of that. The Pallitivere jetty, we have to design the jetty. We don't have a final design at this moment, but I met with MP, I think it was about 2 months ago. MP came to my office. You could go back on OCS page and look at the photos. This is when I met with MP board and so on. When I met with MP, we discussed having in that design the conduits to allow for fuel to be accessible to fishers off of the jetty. But the jetty has to be designed with that capacity from upfront and meet EMA standards and all of that. So we have to get through that design phase to get that jetty done well. Unfortunately, that's another one of the things built by a previous administration that was just not built well. What people don't know is that half of that jetty sunk into the sea many years ago from rough seas. Clearly, that jetty was not built properly. So that's what caused it in the first place. So we have to build over a brand new jetty. Additionally, I met with EOG, which is an important oil company to you, because 14 miles off of Pallitivere is where they won a bid for a block to do drilling. They are about to do their test wells, and they want to bring from 50 plus miles away in Chagaramas their supplies and so on to that test well and to eventually where they will be drilling. And I've said, no, Pallitivere is 14 miles away, 14. That's where you will take your supplies from. And so beyond the jetty, we start discussing things like having helicopter landing pad, what do you call it? A heliport in the area as well to facilitate that, and how we can drive the business along the north side. So I'm going to your first question, north side development. North side should be developed in a way that you can capitalize on the oil and, well, natural gas rather, that is expected to be drilled just off of where you live. That means you're providing all the services, the catering, the fresh fruits and vegetables and supplies. It means that immediate medical and emergency response should also come from your area. Also housing of executives and so on from your area. Additionally, north side, you will see that we are constructing currently a roadway as you ascend from the playing field in Bloody Bay, going to Lansome. We are currently constructing a roadway there that is to open up lands for organic farming in the area. We are also looking at well-placed tourism development. There are some bits of state lands along the coast there that can make for excellent hotel development, but we want sustainable hotel development, environmentally safe. With regards to the Blue Food Grounds, construction actually should have restarted there since last week. When I passed there over the weekend, I couldn't tell whether they restarted or not, but I will pass there during the work time in this week to ensure they restart. A learning resource center is going on site so that the people of Bloody Bay will have access to a community center type facility and an after school care program with smart classrooms. We also will have a camping site there, ATV, paintball in the area. So currently we're going through all of the approval process with Ministry of Homeland Security for the paintball facility. And we are doing it upon advice from the villagers, because we had consultations for Bloody Bay and Lansome combined at the Lansome Community Center, and this is what the people said they wanted. Camping, of course, as part of it. And the booths that are there, we want people to have access to Blue Food all year round. Blue Food, art and craft and so on. And the space will also be available for private people to rent for entertainment, for parties, for live concerts, etc., etc.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Also,
the extension
from
road?
the Lansome to Charleville Extension Road.
Well,
what is the development for that?
I approved an exec council note last week last week Wednesday. That note in the, I think it was Appendix 6 of that note, listed among the projects which the Division of Infrastructure is now being authorized to go to tender for. One of them is the repairs to the Lansome-Shallerville Link Road. That's a project that the THA is still in court over because there is a contractor that claims that the THA never paid them $80 million for that road. Right? So you have to understand, that road was completed and a man claiming we still owe them $80 million. Although it's alleged that that contractor was living in a house owned by the Chief Secretary at the time. So me and know we're living in a house owned by the Chief Secretary and then get pay. Clearly, you and the Chief Secretary friendship was not worth it, if that allegation is true. But we will fight that court case as it is, and we'll go to tender to get the road fixed.
Thank you so much.
We have a question on the screen. With the growing tensions between Venezuela and Trinidad, what contingency plan do we have in place for food security in the event of war?
I love this question, right?
I see the
Number one, Tobago not going to be a part of no war. Tobago and Tobagonians have adopted a position of neutrality, which means we ain't pro or anti nobody. Every country do whatever they feel like doing in their own space. Tobago is not getting involved in any way wherever they want to do, wherever. So if Maduro and Trump want to be at each other's throat, that's their business. Next week, I am having right here in Tobago the ambassador from Venezuela, and I'm having the Charge d'Affaires from the U.S. Embassy, who is the top-ranking diplomat in the country from the United States in Tobago, in the same week, on the same days, at the same functions, and I'm having meetings after the function with them as well. That's because we have adopted a position of neutrality as an island, right? Trinidad and Tobago and the central government, based on law, has every right to determine the international relations policy of the country based on law. The government has said, one, that they are not at war with Venezuela and they're not supporting war in Venezuela and they're not aiding and abetting in war against Venezuela. And two, the government has said that they do in fact support a war against drugs and criminality on our seas. I just explained what is happening in our very own waters here and how we are being robbed on island and people escaping by boat. So I could understand the central government's frustration. I've said publicly that I respect the central government's and the Prime Minister's right in law to make those international relation policies, but for us in Tobago, we're not getting involved in any war. And I don't know that the country is calling us to go to war either. I have not gotten that call from the Prime Minister or anybody else. But to the substantive part of the question, I have asked the research team led by Dr. Hazel over in the Division of Finance, and it's something I spoke to the Secretary of Finance for over the weekend. I asked her to have that team do a research for me on how much months of food we have in Tobago at any given time. I'm not just talking how much we farmers have. Let's, and beyond war, let's assume something happens in Port of Spain. There's a large earthquake. There is something catastrophic. Boat can't sail. Planes can't come. How much months of food cover do we have on island in Tobago? So I've asked for that research to be done by Dr. Hazel and team. That's the same team that works out the GDP for Tobago and all of that. I've asked the Secretary of Finance. She told me that we could run the government fully 2 months at a time without needing any releases from Port of Spain. I've asked her to get that from 2 months to 3 months and to figure out a way for us to get it to 3 months of cover. I intended to meet with our bankers because I don't want a situation where something happens in Port of Spain and the banks decide we can't give you money, because you could have money in the bank and no access to it either. So we have to look at that. We also have to look at our diplomatic conversations with our closest neighbors and people that we were historically adjoined to, like Barbados and Grenada, and whether or not we can get access from them, things that we can't ship through Trinidad to Tobago. So this is a wide and far-reaching kind of conversation that we have to have. But I want to be clear, because I see a lot of fear-mongering happening. And I see, and I want to take a moment to say this, I see a lot of journalists misconstruing facts. And I'll give a very current example. When the plane came into Tobago 2 nights ago or so, I said, I woke up the morning like everybody else to hearing that this thing was on island. And I said to a journalist, I said, I have no idea why they were here. I know for a fact they refueled in Tobago, but I don't know why they were here. And I am going to investigate the matter. The next thing I see is that there are conflicting things in the space, and the chief sec saying something conflicting to the prime minister. Everybody knows that two things can be true at the same time. It is true that they refueled in Tobago, and it is true that I just didn't know. And the prime minister later on spoke about some civil works that the US military is to help us with, which is not uncommon. I live in Speyside. 2 of our major bridges in Speyside were built by the US Army. I was a student in primary school coming and running through the tents on the playing field where the US Army was stationed at the time, eating ration with them because they used to share their ration with us. That was under Hochul Charles as chief secretary. So it is not uncommon for the Tobago space to have the military do civil works in Tobago. The bridges are still there. The bridge going to Blue Waters Inn and the bridge going into Lucy Vale just before Speyside High School were built by the US Army, not by Trinidad and Tobago. So that's not uncommon, right? Of course, I will do my own research because I'm going to go down in the airport myself and look at what they're building there. And if when I turn me back, they're building something else, then we'll have to have a different conversation with the central government about it. But that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Thank you so much. So we're getting close to wrapping up time. We have one more question that came in and one more studio audience, right? Okay. So the construction industry in Tobago has experienced a significant downturn since your administration took office. What specific plans does your government have to revitalize this critical sector going forward?
The great news is that we do have a budget to revitalize the sector. And when you see our blueprint, which will be released on New Year's Day, which essentially will identify not a wish list, but our New Year resolution, our resolutions for the next 4 years, you will see how through the public infrastructure works, which is one of the priority areas, we will drive the construction sector up. Because we have had fiscal constraints, there are a couple of things we had to do. Try to develop some much needed public infrastructure works, and at the same time, pay contractors who were not paid by the PNM when they were in office. Who hired them, give them work and didn't pay them. We paid over the last 4 years, $91 million and counting to those said contractors. Notwithstanding some saying that they don't get money and they don't get paid. Every fiscal we try to pay some on it. $91 million to date we have paid to those said contractors. That's $91 million that we could have spent doing public infrastructure works. Imagine we inherited what was $165 million in so-called road works, drive around Tobago roads. If $165 million was spent in road works during the 6-6 and just before the December election, how come we have so much bad roads? That's to tell you how they were spiriting away the money through corruption and being thieves. However, we did the audit, and what was recommended that we pay for by the audit, we are actively paying, and to date we have paid $91 million in that regard. I could quickly share with you how much construction work was done by the varying divisions and how much in the millions that amounted to. Because I think that this is important bits of information. In food security, to date, they have spent $43,033,663, all Tobago contractors. Tourism, that figure is 10,191,186, all Tobago contractors. Education spent in total $95.7 million on contractors. 85.7 million of that went to Tobago contractors. The Division of Infrastructure spent $159 million. Well, that's contract value to date. And to date, and that's the only division where 48.6 million was paid to Tobago contractors, and that's new projects, and 110 million to Trinidad contractors, and that's owing to the road going through Friendship, which was a design build finance. Social protection health, 3.5 million spent to contractors, 3.4 million to Tobago contractors. Settlements, 11 million was paid to Tobago contractors. Those are the figures. So work, in fact, has been happening. And if we do the summation of all of those figures, we have, in fact, spent more monies on Tobago contractors than Trinidad contractors as a matter of fact.
Thank you so much, Mr. Augustine. We head back to studio audience. We have a question here. Tell us your name.
Okay, my name is Ramesh Rajman.
Right, so we want this to be very tight, Mr. Augustine. We're coming to the close, right? I realize we're getting very excited, but it's getting late as well.
Yeah, no, 25 is part of my family.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to be on TV all the time. Forgive me, it's a long time, man.
Okay, so
like this. Excellent. Well, Mr. Ramesh.
Okay, so my name is Ramesh Rajman. I'm the president of the Argyle Farmers Group, right? And I'm here to, bring some concerns to the Chief Secretary, which he already would have had prior information on discussion we had. In addition to that, he promised us a meeting, and Mr. Chief Secretary, you did not. You did not, fulfill your...
The meeting is still outstanding, and we will have that meeting.
Could you say it tonight? When will we have that meeting with you?
Sure. So this might help you, and I'll give one time the date for the meeting with all the farmers combined, right? Because being able to just treat it here after the meeting will not be the most productive thing to do. So let me look at next week.
All right.
Hold on. We can... All right, so I can have that meeting on, I can meet with all the farmers on December 2nd. December 2nd, right? You can meet with all the farmers on December 2nd. So I'm depending on you, sir, to give us the numbers, right? After the meeting, I will share with you the number for my executive officer, who you will call, and you will give her the numbers, so we'll know where is the best venue to accommodate. And for Argyle, I would like to have the meeting with the Argyle residents on Thursday. I will say Thursday afternoon. I can put that meeting at 4:30 p.m. on Thursday.
This Thursday, sir?
That's this
Thursday coming?
Thursday.
Yeah.
Yes, so this coming Thursday is... Oh no, this Thursday will be bad. That's Tobago Day, right? So let me move that then to the 8th, Monday the 8th at 4:30 p.m.
Okay, sir.
Right? So Argyle is, and I'm sure Miss Mackenzie and them listening, so I'm sure they don't write it down already. So Argyle is at 4:30 p.m. at the Argyle Community Center.
Yes, sir.
And for all the farmers, this Tuesday, which is the 2nd of December, did I give you a time? So this Tuesday, which is the 2nd of December, we can do 10 a.m., right? And we'll confirm the venue based on your numbers. If it's under, the thing will be under 75? So if it's under 75, we could have it right at the office of the Chief Secretary in Collar Hall. We'll have it on the second floor west wing of the building. All right?
Okay, so next question. There's a contractor presently, was awarded the contract to do work at Lamy Road, Argyle.
Yes.
However, it appears that the overrunning of that project, because the project started on the 23rd of August, on 23rd of August 2023, right?
Correct.
Somewhere thereabout. And its proposed date for finish is the 24th of November 2024, right?
Right. So part of the problem is that it's only this year we got WASA to, one, approve the digging of the wells, and two, the running of the lines. And I'm very raising it, and I'll come back to you. Because people sometimes don't understand and appreciate the kinds of literal fight down we got from a central government that was insistent that we do not succeed. Because imagine paying WASA since 2022 for a project that's supposed to end in 2024, and a contract only being issued for the pipes to be laid in 2025, late in 2025, owing to a call from the Chief Secretary to a minister, one. Two, all this time, we could not get approval from WASA to dig the well. So there's no way the project could be completed without WASA's intervention, because only WASA could legally give us the permission to dig a well. And sometimes in Belmont farmers ain't got no water. Although roadway was done, we pay WASA. There are instances where we pay Tiantec and still waiting on the lights. And that's because we had a central government that was telling people, telling the agencies in Trinidad, don't do we work. And then you on the back end get affected. You hate me.
I still love you, Chief.
Right?
I love you, I still love you.
Because that project that should have been delivered since last year is outstanding. And by the way, that's a $28 million project issued by the Office of the Chief Secretary to a Tobago contractor. So it's not even it's not a foreigner. It's a Tobago contractor who won that award, which shows you Tobago contractors that you can in fact bid and win an award. Get people to help you do your bids properly. That's our next conversation. But yes, continue.
Right. So I am asking you and your office, we are present, we're still in the rainy season. Whenever rain falls in Argyle, we cannot go on the lands. Look, recently here, cucumber shortage in Trinidad, in Tobago. I might have been the only one with a big field in Argyle. When you look at the amount of water going through the land, it causing mayhem, because what is going to happen is most of those leaves on the cucumber tree will pick up fungus. And what happened? When the tree gets fungus, you can't spray when rain is falling, crops start to die. So people starving for cucumber.
So here what I'm suggesting, instead of having a meeting at 4:30 p.m. on the 8th of December, let us move that meeting forward to 2:30 p.m. So you can do a tour of the area with me. Now, the last time I did a tour was earlier this year. Now, I want to be clear. Sometimes when contractors know you're passing, they could fix up a place, right? So I could give them that. But let us go and look at what they have done since the last time I toured the area to now. Because the last time I toured the area, they started installing the kiosks for the solar panels and for powering each of the farms. They also started installing the poles for electricity, for solar lights along the area. Some drainage were being done, works were being done, and we could have easily identified each farm. We were literally waiting on WASA to be able to get the actual road works done. I did something additional since we last met, which is I did in fact get clarity and conversation with the Catholic Church about where your farm is. Because where your farmland is actually owned by really and truly by the monks in Benedict. But what happened is that there was some exchange that happened that placed the monks there. The Catholic Church also owned that piece at the entrance to Roxwood Sec on the right-hand side, where there are some people that now live there. And there was some land swapping between the church and the monks at Monks in Benedict that placed them where your farm is. And I believe after the conversations that we have had, we are pretty close to getting an agreement that we can extend the road works that we are doing and the drainage works that we are doing to where your farm is. Because where your farm is located, unfortunately, is not now state lands. So we couldn't just go in and start to do infrastructure works on lands we don't own. So we're working that out with the hopes that we could vary the project, the contract that is existing on the ground, to come to where you and I think 2 or 3 other farmers are, where you'll do the lovely pawpaws and all of those things in the back there, which will take us essentially towards the river, and where there used to be a Bailey Bridge connecting that road behind the Kendall Pool and across by where you are there. So when I come there and we do the site visit, I will also want to take some measurements with the contractors, and I will have the accounting officers and land management there as well, because I want to push them in the direction of extending the project to where you are. Because what will happen is that we'll finish the project, the farmers that currently are less productive than you are, Ramesh, they will have the benefit of good facility and drains and roads, and you who are one of the most productive ones in that zone will not have the real access to the road infrastructure and drainage works that we're doing there. So I want us to walk towards which we didn't do the last time. We only went to the end of the existing project, but now I want to carry it into where your farm is, and you will direct us where you think is the best place for the drainage, the roads, and that kind of thing.
Okay, one more question.
Sure. We'll tell you one more. Quick.
The contractor, right, or the people who do the assessment for where the drain's supposed to run. I've never seen water run uphill, right? In my life, I've never seen water run uphill. How they design the crossing is for the water to go uphill. It is causing a mayhem. Why the roadway? All the water is running in the roadway, that breaking away the road, undermining the walls, and causing more overrun and cost.
All right, so we'll investigate that when we come and we meet, right?
Yes. Thank you so much.
December 8th.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. So, Mr. Augustine, if by chance I may give you 60 seconds, TT, to give a closing remark.
60 seconds, TT, I no value in it. It's US we want. So here's the closing remark, right?
If by chance I
yes,
have to give you,
just 60.
Are you able to accommodate that 60 seconds?
Yes.
Thank you so much. It starts now.
Right. I have been insisting that Tobago becomes the greatest little island on the planet. For that to happen, it requires inputs from all Tobagonians, from all walks of life. It has to be a goal loftier than just a goal that resonates with the public service and with the government. It has to resonate with individuals, and it has to mean that all of us change our habits and the way we work towards building out this island. So for the next 4 years, and over the next 2 months when I campaign, I'll be telling you how I expect you to join me in this labor. Of course, I am very much in the labor with you. He who must lead must first serve. But I need you to work along with me. That looks like showing up to work on mornings and not leaving the stuff on the side of the road. And not working for half an hour and thinking that that's the best I could do. And giving a full day's work, being more productive. That means that parents are showing up and participating in the PTA and pushing for scholarship in our children. That means that corporate Tobago is also contributing. It means that our NGOs are reviving themselves and looking at how we protect our young people and build walls around them so that they're not murdering each other. That means that we are all working hand in hand in building out a society for which we can all be justly proud. Excellent. And that can compete with any other small island.
Thank you so much.
Anywhere in the world.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. That was 60.
That's 60
TT?
plus. It went across. Probably some pounds.
Some pounds?
Yeah, it went across the pounds.
Big money business.
Let's go, let's go. Thank you so much to our live studio audience, and of course, thank you to our viewers on Tobago Channel 5 on YouTube, on Facebook, and our listeners on Pulse 89.5. This brings us to the close of tonight's Before the Ballot session and the end of the Assembly Townhall Series. We'd like to thank you, of course, the Chief Secretary Farley Augustine for agreeing to be interviewed tonight, and to all the assemblymen who accepted the invitation to chat with the people of Tobago. They are Trevor James, thank you so much, Mr. Niall Tate, Terence Baines, Sonny Craig, Natisha Charles Panton, Ian Pollard, and Dr. Faith Brebner. If you missed any of the series, of course, they are all recorded online via Tobago Channel 5's YouTube page. Thank you all for tuning in, and thank you for sharing your questions. We hope that this event and this activity would have been valuable to you. This event was organized by the Tobago Channel 5 in collaboration with Tobago CivilNET, a non-partisan, non-profit organization focused on Tobago development. Visit www.tobagocivilnet.org for more information. And of course, I am Natoya Johnson Chapman, thanking you as well for joining us tonight. This was Before the Ballot.